I do think humans are a bit like moths, attracted to the light. And the lighter that we are, then the people will be attracted to that.
One, accepting that you can't serve everybody, that you're not for everybody. And two, clearly articulating who you are and who you are for and who you're not for.
Trust that Reiki will bring you the right people at the right time, and keep telling the universe that you're ready for them, and they will come.
Welcome, friends, to the Reiki Women Podcast, an exploration into the profound depths of the system of Reiki from a Japanese spiritual perspective and how that relates to our modern lives.
We are keeping it real to Reiki's origins, challenging the New Age stereotype that things like crystals, chakras, and angels are authentic aspects of the system. I'm Bronwen Logan, and when I'm not writing best-selling books about the Japanese system of Reiki, 75,000 readers and counting, I'm here debunking outmoded Reiki myths and coaching individuals and groups through my website, Reiki with Bronwen.
And I'm Michaela Daystar, lead teacher and weaver of Heartscapes Reiki, connecting the dots between Reiki and environmental and social justice, because our individual healing cannot be extracted from healing relationship with the collective and with the land.
And I'm Carrie Varela from the Reiki Healing Society, here to help you transform your Reiki practice into a thriving, prosperous business. Because while passion fuels your purpose, it's time to make it sustainable, authentic, and beautifully you. We're three women diving into the heart of Japanese Reiki. We're building a community that centers women's voices and inspires well-being. We're not just for women, we're for everybody. Come join the conversation. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Reiki Women Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that relates to our topic from last time. So last time we were speaking about how to find the right Reiki teacher. So for students out there who are curious about Reiki, interested in learning, we did a whole podcast on just things that, you might want to be aware of as you go about the process of choosing the right Reiki teacher for you. And so today we wanted to kind of switch gears and address this topic from a different perspective. So this is approach more from the perspective as Reiki teachers. How do we go about finding the right Reiki clients and Reiki students for us? How do we draw the right people into our community, into our business? And how do we go about, advertising our Reiki courses so that we can get the word out to the people around us? And so I know that Bronwen had some wonderful thoughts. She's been writing all of these thoughts down, and so she's geared up to start talking about this conversation. So Bronwen, tell us, for the Reiki teachers in the room, how do we go about finding the right students?
Well, Carrie, it seems to me there's a bunch of different angles we can take on this. Obviously, there's the technical things like you were just talking about. That's not what I was writing down points about, but happy to chat about as we get into the discussion. But I thought it would be nice to think about the more energetic aspect of this because we work with an energetic practice. I thought most importantly, as a teacher, we need to think about why we want to be a teacher. So picking up on that thought first. So why do we want to be a teacher? There can be all sorts of reasons why. There can be reasons which appeal to our strengths, and there can be reasons which appeal to our weaknesses. So I think we need to look at those and be honest with ourselves and work out exactly why we're doing what we're doing. And is it actually what we should be doing? I know a lot of people think, oh, I want to be a Reiki teacher. I had a student the other day in one of my groups, and she was just saying how she felt sad all of a sudden because she'd had all these things happen in her life and she really wanted to teach. And the opportunity hadn't come to her. It wasn't there for her. And how that made her feel really sad about that. And yet everyone in the group is like, my goodness, you are like one of the biggest teachers in this group. She's always out there teaching us. And it's sometimes maybe that thing of us, maybe we're labeling ourselves too much as like a teacher and a student. Maybe we should really accept the fact that what we're doing in our lives is always teaching. And I think everyone is always teaching to some degree. We're teaching our children, our our partners, our community in some way. We're taking that role, and it might be in a small way, or it might be in a more vocal, large way, but we're all here for each other, supporting each other. And so thinking about why you want to be a teacher, do you want to actually be like a teacher who writes down, I'm a Reiki teacher, put it up somewhere, and try to find students in that way? We're going to talk about how to do that today. Or think about, is that the right path for you? Is your path more to live it and be a role model for others? I think that we need to think about ourselves and who we are and how we can teach others. And the best way to do that is by becoming strong inside ourselves, which is why I said working energetically. Yeah. So finding that strength inside of ourselves, as I said, being honest with ourselves. What makes you strong inside yourself? How can you become stronger? And that's through your practice. You're a Reiki practitioner. So you have the skills there, which you can take advantage of to become stronger in yourself. I do think humans are a bit like moths, attracted to the light. And the lighter that we are, then the people will be attracted to that. And so thinking in those terms, how do you become the light? How do you become that stronger light? And the more we are that light, the more that people will come to us, whether they're paying students, whether they're just people in our community. People will be attracted to that. And I think all of us have that duty to be that light, because the more of us that are that light, the lighter the world's going to be, and we lift up the world together. So that is a really important thing, to become stronger, more resilient, to have more faith in yourself and your thoughts and your feelings. And you can only do that if you know what they are. So that getting to know yourself is so important. And that's what the practice is about. And it just keeps coming up in my stuff lately. So in everything that I've been doing, this idea of the mirror and, looking in the mirror, and who are you seeing in that mirror? Think about that. As a teacher, who are you seeing in that mirror? Who is that teacher? And go through and keep looking each day in the mirror. Who is that teacher in the mirror? Who am I? And finding the aspects of you that may not be just the things that you like about yourself, or the things that you don't like about yourself. Because when we look in a mirror, often it's those things that we see, right? So finding more depth inside of yourself. And I have a little poem for you to match it, because that's also come up for me lately. And it was in my group that I teach on every second week. So this is the Empress Shokun's poem, and it's, having forgotten our mirror had been placed there, it happened that we wondered who the person was when viewing our own reflection. So there was a mirror in an unexpected place. She walks along, she sees someone in the mirror, and then she thinks, who's that? It's her. So who is that? Who's that person in the mirror? And finding those things inside of yourself, knowing yourself more deeply, knowing who is in the mirror. These are the things that are going to help you to strengthen things inside of you, use those things, and work with the weaknesses. Find out what they are and find out how you can do something about them. So if you can, you become a lighter being, and I think that then you're going to be able to shine your light for everybody. And I think that's a great place to begin as a teacher. And you're going to attract all sorts of people who want to be in that light. Yes, says Michaela.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely the place to start. And I mean, we have, it's a wonderful gift to be in a practice and in a profession where we know to tend to that, right? Where we know that our practice of the work in and of itself, as it grows us energetically, as it grows our groundedness, our openness, and our connectedness, that that does mean that the connections that we make will be more true, will be more clear, and that people will be able to recognize themselves in that light. And then once they've been drawn towards us because of that light, or because there's a connection that's been made, because of the way that we're showing up, then their conscious mind will probably still need something to grab onto, some description, some words, some affirmation that what they're feeling, energetically, emotionally, is actually correct cognitively. And that's where, how we talk about our practice comes in. And I know I've spoken to this in various contexts on the podcast, but it really is explicitly relevant to this conversation, which is the importance of articulating our values clearly when we're talking about our work as Reiki teachers and practitioners. The truth is that while the radiance of our true self and our inner light will absolutely shine on everybody that we are in connection with and potentially benefit everybody, when it comes to working with us as students or even as clients, we're not actually for everybody. We're not able to serve everybody. Numerically, of course, that's true, but also in terms of fit, right? And that fit is going to be based on a number of things, certainly energetically, right? We could check all the boxes of good connection and still like the vibes are off and we just don't feel good around each other, right? Like that's absolutely a thing that happens. That we can't control. But what we can control is how we articulate the other pieces of that puzzle. And that comes down to what our particular orientation is towards the system of Reiki, how we understand it, what our perspective is on it, how we approach the teaching of it, what our values are, the ones that are, of course, our own personal values, but specifically the ones that govern our business, the ones that really guide how we approach our teaching. And then what specifically we are prepared to support our students around. And you would think that would be a fairly uniform thing, but it's not. It's quite varied what a teacher is going to actually provide to their students. And, that's not to say there's a right or a wrong. It's just to say different teachers are going to have different things to offer, different things that are important to us, and therefore show up for our students in different ways. And so all of that can be clearly communicated in our website, in how we talk about our work, in how we talk about it on social media, podcasts, whatever the case, such as this one. And so it's really important that we get clear, first of all, that we kind of have a certain level of acceptance that while we would like to be able to help everybody, there's going to be better and worse fits. Therefore, getting really clear, what are the values that drive our business, particularly when it comes to teaching Reiki? What is the structure of how we teach, right? What is our pedagogy? How do we go about teaching the material? That will matter to students. And what are we prepared to support our students in specifically? And, all of that doesn't have to be articulated in the same place, but somewhere along the lines, it needs to be expressed. And for me, kind of going through the journey of going from I want to help everybody, and therefore my language is very general. The language of my website was very generic, very, very general. It wasn't speaking to any one type of person in particular. It didn't articulate the values that made me unique because I was afraid of, turning some people off, right? Like demonstrating that I'm not for certain types of people. But the truth is, I'm not. I'm not for everybody. I have a very particular orientation to how I teach Reiki and what matters to me. And what I came to realize after, first few years, like being really quite shy and afraid really to articulate these things clearly, is that I was actually not doing my students a service by being vague, by being general. Because first of all, the people who really are my people, the people who are really for me as students, and I am for them as a teacher, had a hard time finding me because they weren't seeing the language that represented what mattered to them. And conversely, people who are definitely not for me, that I am not the teacher for them, would be in my classes, would self-select to be in my classes because they didn't see anything that told them, oh, this is not for you. And so, there were a number of students that would have been better served with a different teacher, right? Didn't get the learning experience or the outcomes that they specifically wanted because I wasn't for them. And it's almost embarrassing, like how long it took me to like get up the courage to say, these are the things that matter to me. This is why you would come to me as opposed to somebody else. If this is not what you're looking for, then I am not for you. But once I did, everything became so much easier because the people who were looking for what I have to give could easily identify themselves in what I was saying. And the people who don't want those things could easily self-select to move on and find someone who's a better fit for them. And so I think that's really my number one advice. And I'm saying this from my heart, knowing how difficult those two things can be. They seem simple, but they can be incredibly challenging. One, accepting that you can't serve everybody, that you're not for everybody. And two, clearly articulating who you are and who you are for and who you're not for. You don't necessarily have to say, I'm not for these people, but by clearly saying who you are for, it'll be obvious. And for me, it came down to finding those three values that are the foundation of my business and then articulating that, building on that. And for me, those three values is that I'm for people who first and foremost see Reiki as a self-practice. If they want to work with Reiki with other people in some professional or casual capacity, that is totally great. You will get that foundation, but first and foremost, this is for you. And that's the orientation that I want people to have when they come to my classes. I teach Reiki from the perspective of the Japanese origins. If they're looking for a Western form or a hybrid form, I am not for them. And third, I have a social justice orientation. So that's going to be present. We are going to be, honest about what's happening in the world and, people who want to bring Reiki into their work or their personal efforts to make the world a better place, then I am definitely for them. If you're not interested in any of that, I'm not for you, right? So 3 simple values, clearly articulated all across all of my marketing, has made finding the students who are for me so much easier and has made the teaching experience so much richer and so much higher value for the people who come because the fit is so good. So that is my number one advice. What about for you, Carrie?
Well, I'm loving all of this. I love where you took us and started things off for us, Bronwen, really starting with ourselves and becoming strong in ourselves. And I love, Michaela, how you kind of took that from there and just talked more about, the values that you weave into your courses. I think that's also really relevant. And I guess I feel like I fall in this as uh, contributing to those strong pillars is that I feel like you really need to have a strong foundation of Reiki before you teach. And so I want to echo, what Bronwyn was saying is that you should know whether or not teaching is right for you. And if you have a teacher archetype, let's just say, you have a teacher archetype. Okay, like you're gonna be that boss lady who's like, give me anything and I will like reprocess and regurgitate it and teach it to you in either a different or just in my own way, right? And if we're drawn to teaching like that, I think is a very important piece of self-knowledge. Like you should know whether or not, you are drawn towards teaching, that you get a lot from teaching, that teaching is fulfilling to you, because all teachers, I think, who really good have a gift for it, right? It's a gift. Like I think of my children's teachers who are like, have a gift for communicating with a kindergartner. I do not have that gift. I love my kindergartner, but let's just say, it's just not like and I do love 5-year-olds. I think they're some of the most enlightened beings ever. And I can imagine why it would be really attractive to be with like that kind of vibe all day, right? But that's not who I'm drawn to teaching. So it is about, identifying yourself as a teacher and then, kind of feeling into what archetype of teaching that really does feel fulfilling to you. And I've definitely always identified as a teacher. In particularly, I found that path through yoga, right? I just was like, oh yeah, like I need to teach this and this is important for me. And I kind of put more of the why around that as I've gone, through it. But, first it was just a real self-identified, like passionate connection where it was like, oh my God, like I need this. It's fulfilling, it's sustaining. And, some part of my own, self-definition there was like, oh yeah, identifying. I actually appreciate and I like teaching adults. Like I want to teach adults and and then as I've gone along, I really realized that like there's a spiritual component of my work that I will also want to incorporate. And that's where Reiki has really come into play. But I just want to name that I think the whole system around Reiki teaching is totally broken. And I think it's not right. I don't think that we've put enough integrity and, guidance and support for people who want to go through the journey of becoming or, learning Reiki, taking Reiki level 1 through 3, and then just, letting them fly out the nest. Like, hey, you want to teach your own Reiki course as well? Have fun, and that there's not a standard of ethics of like what that transition would entail, what kind of learning and skills and knowledge one should have before they embark on teaching a Reiki course. So, one of the solutions that I offer to that, well, first of all, okay, so we know this, and it's such a problematic aspect of Reiki, where we really, the whole setup was these drive-through certifications where people were like, literally, come to me for 2 hours and I'll give you an attunement, and here you go, here's your certificate, you're Reiki certified. And there's so many people who learned Reiki in that fashion, left them completely confused. Um, you know, some people might have really gravitated towards the energetic aspects of it, or, self-developed their own capacity to work with Reiki. Um, but those kinds of trainings are really not good quality. And I know that there's plenty of Reiki teachers out there who don't teach that way. So I just want to say that there's plenty of us who want a different path and want a different way of being in relationship with teaching Reiki. But I think if you look to the Japanese perspective on this, is that the process of becoming a teacher is like first you apprentice with your teacher, right? Like you learn more about the practice. So I think at minimum, if you want to teach Reiki, you absolutely have to take the courses again. Like that's what I always encourage my students to do, is take the courses 1 through 3 the first time through for your own knowledge, your own self-edification, for your own growth. And then what I offer in my community is just to retake the courses again. And so that you can have one foot in your own experience, and then you can have one foot in putting yourself in the position of teaching. How would I go about teaching this material now that I've learned it, and I've learned it a second time? And I think to be a teacher, you have to be constantly learning, like that's one, I think, key characteristic of a teacher is that they're never going to stop saying like, oh yeah, I know this. Or maybe that's a characteristic of a bad teacher. Like, oh, I know this and I'm so smart, and just aren't open to the learning process. Um, so that's what I suggest, is like, at least taking it 2 times through. And then, you have a lot more knowledge about the practice of Reiki, and that you can go ahead and start teaching your courses with a lot more confidence. And the confidence in teaching Reiki was something that was a hard learned process for me, because I didn't have that support. And actually, no, I do want to say that I did apprentice with my first Reiki teacher. I apprenticed with her. I retook, I think, all of the courses, and I would like sit with her inside of Reiki sessions. I learned a lot from her, and I was like with her for a couple years of just deep learning. Grew a lot under her tutelage, and she supported me a lot. And I'd love for us to see more of that within Reiki, was really supporting emerging people who want to, become practitioners, want to become teachers. So I guess that's one thing. Is this just and it kind of comes back to what you were saying, Bronwen, is just becoming strong in ourselves. And so I think if you've only taken a Reiki course once and maybe you've had kind of a drive-through Reiki experience, I don't encourage you to go try to teach Reiki from that perspective. Keep growing on your path with Reiki, and maybe it's going to take some years. Like, it's not going to happen overnight that you become a Reiki teacher. You can't just take Reiki 1 and be like, poof, okay, I'm ready to teach Reiki. Like, there needs to be some embodiment. There needs to be some time sitting with that practice for you. And I think it's also a sacred journey where you have to say yes. You have to say yes to the path. And then when you do say yes, it's really exciting to see how the universe responds and brings you and aligns you with the right people who are ready to learn from you, who can, sit and listen to your own unique approach and methodology. Um, that being said, I still think that there's a case for us to like try to take a little bit less of ourselves into the courses and just teach Reiki, that it shouldn't have to be like, oh, like every teacher is so different. Like, I think that that's also something that we're missing as a community, is that people are just so left with a lot of confusion about what Reiki really is. So that's one thing that I always want to make sure that my clients that come through my courses really get and grasp, that they understand what Reiki really is. And So, but then I think the process is just continuing to choose the practice and continuing to show up and, say when you're ready. I'm ready to teach. I'm ready to teach. And I want to teach Reiki to people because I know how life changing it is and how life giving it is. And it's done so much for me. So then it comes down to some of the more practical aspects, like absolutely what you were saying, Michaela. Weave some of your values into your teaching. Get a website, advertise your services. I think teaching Reiki is a natural expression of being a Reiki practitioner. So first, get 100 Reiki sessions under your belt and have a good, strong experience of working with clients and working with different issues with people. And that's a really good setup for Reiki teachers, because a Reiki teacher should be knowledgeable enough to answer the students' questions too.
Yeah.
And my students have great questions. They really do. And they keep me always on my toes and helping me learn too. But, when I've had enough experience with Reiki, I can really answer their questions and answer them well. Final thing I want to say about this is that if you want to be a Reiki teacher and you've put all this time and dedication into, maybe 5 years of, and I don't want to say that like as a limiting thing, maybe it's 1 year, maybe it's 3 years, but a period of time that Reiki has been in your life and circulating, and you've made this conscious choice, you want to teach Reiki. Learn how to price your courses appropriately, because teaching Reiki is even beyond, practicing Reiki. Practicing Reiki takes some time and skill. Takes maybe 100 sessions at least of practice with clients and getting more comfortable with that. Before you can feel really confident working as a Reiki practitioner. Make sure you like the work, you enjoy it, and then same with opening your doors as a Reiki teacher. More than likely, most Reiki teachers out there have studied with many teachers, have been doing this work for a really long time, really drawn to it, feel very aligned with the work that they're doing. So for those teachers, you need to be charging more for your trainings. And I see it all the time where people are out there, they've probably spent so much time working to become a Reiki practitioner, and then they're charging $150 for a 4-hour course. And I don't think that that's enough time to really give people a full toolkit with Reiki. And if you do the numbers and you crunch the numbers, even if you had 5 students, like at least in, California terms, that's where I live. Like, that is not going to take you very far financially. And you work so hard for those five students that, there should be a bigger, I'm not saying I'm saying a payday, because you've spent so much time and effort, presenting this material. So there's a real devaluation that I think is very chronic in the Reiki world, and we really need to be charging more for our trainings and those. And I think that might be of like a fear, kind of like what you were saying, Michaela, is a real fear of detracting your students, like, oh, nobody's going to be able to afford it. But I assure you, like, anybody who really wants to have a solid understanding of Reiki, wants to get it right from the first training, wants the full experience of Reiki, they are willing to pay the rate that you want to offer. And they're willing to do payment plans and other things that really help all Reiki practitioners kind of even out their financial life. So I've been blabbering on. And maybe this would be a good time, anyways, to talk and take a little break and talk about our sponsorship for the Reiki Women Podcast. Would you like to share a little bit about what you're working on, Ms. Bronwen?
Yeah. Well, I think I said it last time, but I'm just going to say it again because I'm into it at the moment. And that's about my Wacko Wisdom online course that I have that you can do in your own time. It's 21 days taking you through some of the poems that we can work with in the system of Reiki, which Mikao Usui did, and his peers, contemporaries, students. Recently, I just wrote an article about that because I was going through the Memorial Stone again, which I've been doing with my bi-monthly group, and we've been looking at certain aspects of that. And I realized that I already knew so much about the fact that poetry was one of the cornerstones of the system of Reiki, but I had forgotten. In the Memorial Stone, it says that Mikao Usui taught using, and then it mentions two things. And one of them we always talk about, the precepts being this point that we springboard off. It's the base of everything. It's the tip of it all as well. And the other thing was the Meiji Emperor's teachings, which are the poems. Today, we might think that's a weird thing to do, but you know what? Once you start working with them and you start going into them, you start doing exactly what we've been talking about, and that is removing layers of yourself, seeing yourself in ways. It's like having a little personal teacher there going, oh, have a think about this, have a think about that. What do you like with this? And it's really amazing work working with the poems. I would suggest doing that course, and you can do it at any time, start anytime. You can start today, and we'll put links for these things at the bottom of this podcast. Who's next? Michaela, what you got going?
Well, since it's topically appropriate, I'll just mention that I'm about to open early enrollment for my next 9-month program, which is how I teach folks the system of Reiki. Folks are welcome to register for either just the Shoden one if they want they want to connect, make sure that we're a good fit, make sure I'm the right teacher for you before committing to the 9-month program. So you can enroll for either just Shoden Reiki 1 or for the 9-month program. And you have through the end of Shoden to commit to that program if you choose to do so. And yeah, early enrollment will be opening for that this week, and that'll be on my website. How about you, Carrie?
Yeah, I also have a Reiki course coming up in the fall. So I typically offer my Reiki courses twice a year. And I really like how you've designed your teaching practice, Michaela. I think it's really helpful. I've consider doing that as well. But as of right now, I just teach the individual courses. But what's kind of special is that I'm going to be teaching Reiki Level 3 in the fall. And I don't teach it necessarily every year, but I have a group of students coming up and ready to take the Reiki 3 course. And so for my online students, I offer, particularly those of you who trained in a Western lineage, and so you've learned Reiki from that point of view. My Reiki 3 courses can be a great entryway into learning Reiki from a traditional perspective. So you can take the Reiki Level 3 course, but it also includes the review course for Shoden and Okuden. And so you get a nice, review of all of them, and then, an encouragement to continue and take the courses one by one if you want to teach them. So yeah, feel free to reach out, and I'll leave a link in the show notes as well for my Reiki 3 course this fall. All right. So,
Yeah.
Bronwen, back to our conversation. Tell us more. How do we find the right students?
I just need to stretch. It's freezing here, so I'm trying to keep warm. It was really lovely to listen to you both, and I love so many of those points. I love that, Michaela, what you said about, that fear or that someone might not like you, or you got to let all that go. And that's the part of thing of like getting to know yourself and knowing that that's okay, and being really clear about what it is that you love about the teachings and what you love to teach, and doing it from, a lot of clarity and a lot of heart. And I think that is going to attract what it needs to attract. Of course, there are so many technical things that you can do to bring it all in and around, and you both spoke to that beautifully. Yeah, sometimes I also think that maybe there's too many people thinking that they want to be Reiki teachers, and they don't actually have to be, as I was sort of saying early on, they don't need to be a formalized teacher. We can bring this into our world in so many ways. So thinking about that, thinking about if you have the skills, I think, Carrie, you called it the teacher archetype, such a great way to put it. Do you have the skills? Do you have the training? I firmly believe that to be a good teacher, that yes, you need to have an understanding about yourself, but you need to have an understanding about what it means to teach. Can you set it up for your students? Because you will attract students if you set it up well, if you set it up with integrity, with quality training, quality materials. I myself, I've done many years ago, I started to teach English to foreign students. Or actually, before that, I was teaching as well. I was teaching drama to kids. I've always taught in some form, as if I look at my life along the way. And each of those experiences gives you more wisdom and knowledge and understanding about what it means to be a teacher, to teach, and what students need to learn. And there's a lot of different angles that we need to come from to support students, satisfy their needs to be able to help them to move into what it is that they need to become. Being with people, sharing what we know, I think is a really valuable thing. And I think we shouldn't put that down. And I think that if you want to impart things, find ways that work for you. First thing that I did was get involved in an association, because I thought that to get integrity in the business, that's where we could find good support to get good teachings out there, to, like you were talking about, Carrie and Michaela, to be able to actually provide quality teaching for people, so that we didn't have sort of like fly-by-night stuff that didn't leave students feeling like, oh, what do I do? Confused. So working strongly with an association, and I ended up setting up Shibumi International Reiki Association. But when I moved on from International House of Reiki, I had to leave all of that behind. Within the International House of Reiki, I also set up all these teaching courses, which, Carrie, is what you're talking about. Like if someone would come to a Reiki 2 course, then there was an online course that they could take to remind them what the Reiki 1 course might have been like if they'd have done it, or what the actual cornerstones to those teachings were. There's so many ways that we can support students. And today I tend to teach people online, one-on-one more, being with them where they're at and looking at what they need. It seems to me, if I'm looking at what we're all talking about, there's many different shades and colors to this, and students can really feel what attracts them or what they need at this moment. That is the other thing. What does a student need at this exact moment? They're all going to need something different, and we can't always be everything to that. But a student needs to choose, and a student needs to research, and we can only be who we are and continue working on that. And hopefully we can be there as a teacher for students in whatever way that they need at this moment.
I really appreciate that both of you brought, kind of took a step back from how do we find the students to like before we're looking for students, we're stepping into the role of teacher. And I do think it really involves some self-reflection on whether that is indeed the path that we want to take. And if so, what do we need? Again, on a self-assessment, what do we need from where we are in our life experience to step into teaching? Because as you said, Bronwen, teaching is a completely different skill set, and teaching well and teaching spiritual practice that has both book learning and a great deal of experience and culture and history and direct experience with the mystery, right? There's a lot of moving parts to teaching Reiki well. And so having an honest self-assessment of, do I have what I need to do that? Not just, do I know the system of Reiki because I've immersed myself in the classes, but do I know how to teach? And that's a question that everybody's going to answer differently. And every teacher who might want to graduate other teachers is going to differently answer, how do I prepare those students? Everything from, yeah, well, once you've taken my Reiki 3 and you can use my manuals and off you go, to actual full-on teaching apprenticeships. And I love that you brought that up, Carrie, the importance of apprenticeship. I deeply believe in the value of apprenticeship, and I very much wanted to apprentice to a Reiki teacher and didn't get that opportunity, so I came to teaching from another direction. But I did have the opportunity to apprentice in other teaching traditions, so I felt very prepared to teach. And similar to you, Bronwen, I was smiling when you were talking about how, oh, I've actually always taught no matter what my job. That's the same for me, like going back to high school, going back to retail jobs, going back to I was a tattoo artist briefly for a period of time. And in that brief period of time, I taught another person how to be a tattoo artist. Like, teaching has always been at the core of whatever job I've done. And so I have decades of different types of trainings and how to teach different things. So, what I needed when I stepped into teaching Reiki was different than somebody who doesn't have that background. And all of that is okay. It's just a matter of being honest about what we need to step into it well, and then finding how to do that, how to receive that teaching. And I do think that you can bring together teaching experience from other traditions, other places, and then a solid understanding of Reiki, and bring that together into a quality teaching experience. And the more you can be supported in doing that well and doing that specifically for Reiki in the way that you want to teach it, in the way that you resonate with it, it's just going to be better for you, for your students, and everybody in your ecosystem. So I very much believe in apprenticeship. I do have a Reiki teaching apprenticeship for folks who have been through my program. Just graduated my first Reiki teacher last month, so I'm very excited about that, and I have 2 more who will be coming in with me for this next cycle. So yeah, so I think that's where I'm going to land, is just appreciating apprenticeship as a model very much, and honest self-assessment for how we step into any role that we want to take.
Yeah.
Final words for you, Miss Carrie?
Yeah, same. I think, it's important that you mentioned, Bronwen, not every student is the same. And it's same with our journey with teaching. So I really appreciate that there's different points of view. And look, hey, as a Reiki teacher, you're probably going to face imposter syndrome in so many different ways. That's why I think you'll serve yourself more to have really good training in Reiki, feel really confident in the skills, the knowledge, have enough practice with it. And some of us, we just didn't have that, right? So maybe we bounced around to different teachers, and maybe we learned things from different pathway, so I know I have, some students in my group who wouldn't need an apprenticeship because they already know, they have a really good solid understanding of Reiki. So I think we shouldn't judge that this is the path, but just really for those of us who are new to Reiki, who are emerging healing artists, you need to kind of be under somebody's wing and have them support you for a period of time before you're ready to fly. And that's it. It is important foundation, right? But then when you have that foundation, how do you find the Reiki students? Oh, girl, it's a hustle. But first of all, flyers are great. Putting flyers out. I've gotten a lot of students over the years with flyers. Um, my Reiki clients are they're more than likely going to become a Reiki student at one point if they're really gravitating to the practice, if they're really getting out a lot out of it at some point, they'll take the Reiki courses. So usually it's kind of, for me, the design process of teaching is, I want to, when I hear the nudge, from my community, then I'm gonna, set up a round of courses, or maybe I just kind of, at this point, have certain times of the year when I offer my courses. But keep really good track of the people who are interested, and keep reaching out to people who have expressed interest, and also just trust the process. Trust that Reiki will bring you the right people at the right time, and keep telling the universe that you're ready for them, and they will come, absolutely. So we also kind of really touched about this a lot in our last topic too. I think there was other topics or threads that we brought up, but I think it's important to know as a Reiki teacher that the students come to you. You don't, it's not the other way around. So you got to kind of put yourself in a position where they can come to you and create those pathways with which that they come to you. And then it's just a process of time and repetition and practice, and it'll happen. All right, friends. Well, thanks for joining us for these last two conversations about Reiki courses. We hope they have been very helpful for you. Feel free to share your own insights, expertise on this whole process of finding the right Reiki students for your courses. And we love if you to subscribe to our channel so you can be in the touch and in the know of our upcoming episodes. We have a Facebook group called Embodying Reiki, so feel free to join our community there. And check out all the links that we have for you below regarding our offerings and services. And then feel free to share this episode with somebody if you feel like it might be helpful for them. All right, friends, well, have a gorgeous week, and we'll see you again in the next video.
Bye.